Okay, it's no secret there's a plethora of financial advice out there, especially on TikTok. No, especially on TikTok as well as on Instagram. And the thing is, like, there's some good advice, but there's also some really big crap out there too. So let's take a look at a few of these. Here's one video to look at in particular.
What's a piece of information that you learned that feels illegal to know?
That if you start an S corporation and you own 100% of your S corporation, that you can buy everything that you own under that S corporation, and then you don't pay taxes on anything that you purchase because it's considered a corporate expense. And
Here, let me pause her for a second right here. Buy everything you own under this corporation. First off, there are some things you cannot buy with a corporation. She's kind of right. There's some half-truths in here, but you can't buy everything you own with a corporation. For example, I cannot buy my underwear with this corporation. Here, I'll show you. I'll prove. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to show you. But you cannot buy underwear. You cannot buy a lot of your clothing unless it has like a logo of your company or something like that on there. It's really hard to do that, and IRS would call bull every time. But she is right. There are a lot of things you can write off, and she's going to give you a few good ideas here.
you can take one corporate vacation a year, and depending on how much money your corporation makes, that price actually fluctuates up, and you can actually hire your children to work for you for $12,000 a year tax-free. So then you're actually
That's true too. You can actually hire your kids $12,000 a year tax-free.
Actually showing an expense, but you're gifting it back to your own family household. And then you pay yourself a salary, which means you pay less self-employment taxes. And then basically at the end of every month, you're left with $0 to pay real taxes on. It feels really shitty to do it, but it's kind of how you avoid paying taxes. So I don't know.
So good stuff. She did make a mistake here. She said your salary, you don't pay self-employment tax. It's actually the opposite. The salary you do pay taxes on, like normal, but the owner draws, you avoid paying the Social Security taxes on. So she kind of got it flip-flopped, but she was given some basic good information that, yes, S corporations, you can write off a lot of good stuff. In fact, I even taught people that for, now it's been almost 15 years. We've been teaching this kind of tax tactics, strategies that you can use with S corporations. So for example, if someone makes $300,000 a year, as income they're taking from their corporation, but you do $100,000 as your salary, $200,000 as owner draws, you actually save almost 15% a year really on that money that's owner draws. So that means you're saving almost $30,000 because you did $200,000 that you routed through your owner profits versus your own salary. So there's little cool things you can do with that strategy-wise are awesome. Definitely can minimize tax. I can vouch for that myself. I've done it as well. Does it mean that I can pay zero tax? Absolutely not. That does not mean that at all. If you're making a decent amount of money, you're probably going to end up paying taxes regardless, and you really should, because the problem I see people running into is they don't have enough money to show on their taxes, and then when they try to get loans, they can't get loans because they look like they're broke. So anyways, good stuff, but you got to be careful because it might sound good, but if you don't have clarification, it could get you in big trouble with the IRS. All right, this next one, this claim is you can become a millionaire if you open an MPI account. This is a guy named Curtis Ray that's online. He's got a lot of followers on TikTok, apparently 1.2 million. So he sells insurance stuff as well as financial products. And of course, this MPI is actually just a fancy term for an indexed universal life policy, an insurance policy. And so he's talking about how, hey, you can take all this money, you stack it in here, but then after 15 years, you got lots of money and you can be a millionaire. Okay, yeah, nothing new on that one. Right? He's trying to make it sound fancy. It's really kind of like, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. They try to use these different, policies that say, hey, I'm going to borrow from it and do this stuff. The truth is, most of these policies are more expensive than even the ones we talk about on our show here. So I don't know. It's like one of those things that they try to, insurance guys and financial guys, but especially insurance guys like to give these fancy little cool, cute names to call their own thing. But really, it's just the same old vanilla crap that everybody else is selling. They just try to make it seem like it's this new thing. Sometimes they'll even throw out tax codes. They're like, did you hear about this tax code? Yeah, it's called life insurance. Oh, okay. Well, what makes it special? Nothing. So anyways, when you hear that kind of stuff and they're trying to leverage and show different ways of using it, like, hey, you can use it now before you retire. Duh. That's always been the case and nothing's changed. But again, they try to put a nice little spin on it to make it seem sexy. But in truth, you end up paying a lot more in fees. And they tend to be very vague about their information anyways. All right, this next one here, the claim, just buy Tesla calls. So this guy, talks about how he documented himself buying $15,000 worth of Tesla calls. If you don't know what a call option is, it's essentially banking on the call of the stock going up. So like buying a stock, but the difference is that's based on price points, and depending on the price and the time horizon, I won't get into all the details, but essentially you can make more money than you could just buying the stock. You can make a lot more money. Conversely, you can also lose a lot more money if you do call options. So call options is essentially like buying a stock where you bet on it going up. If it doesn't go up, you lose a lot. That happened to him right here. He buys these $15,000 worth of Tesla calls, loses thousands within minutes. But then a few hours later, he ends up making about $7,000 in total. So all within the same few hours, he ended up making $7,000 off his $15,000. Sounds awesome. And he's saying, everybody buy Tesla calls. Well, then everybody says, I should do that too. I'm telling you, from a guy that taught people how to trade stocks and options, I had a client, a student, who in his first week or two, he wasn't experienced enough. He didn't have all of his rules in place. He goes and tries to do the same thing, lost 90% of his money in 1 week. 1 week, lost 90% of all of his money. The guy almost sounded completely depressed, almost suicidal. It was horrible to watch. You gotta beware. And not to mention, if you would have bought Tesla calls based on this guy's information, guess what? Tesla has dropped in price. Tesla has tanked. You would have probably lost everything trying to imitate what this guy has done. That's where I say, gambler beware. This is not an investor. This is a gambler. He did it right one time. You don't know if he made money the next time or not. You just saw that one deal. But that's the problem with having this bite-sized little ADHD TikTok type videos, is that sometimes you don't get the full picture and you'll lose out. Okay, the next one. All right, this next one is actually dealing with Curtis Ray again, the guy that talked about this whole insurance policy you can use. Now he's talking about paying as little down payment on your mortgage as possible. Now, I'm not actually opposed to the strategy, so I was kind of curious to see what he had to say on this. But guess what? Once again, he uses this to kind of fit the square peg in this round hole, right? He says, hey, well, don't pay off your mortgage. In fact, pay as little as you can on the mortgage and then put all the rest of the money into my insurance plan that I'm going to make all these commissions off of. Now, again, I'm not opposed to people making money off stuff, because if it works, it works. If it's a win-win, awesome, do it. But I know how these things work. I know how to do these policies probably better than he does, even though he claims that no one can do it better than him. I can assure you, probably if we did apples to apples, if I found some of his numbers here, if we went digging into his stuff, I could probably find a way to beat his stuff, okay? But regardless, like even with the stuff that I know I could probably beat on his, I would even hesitate doing that. I've had actual clients say, should I take money from my mortgage, put it into this product? And I said, you know what? I would rather you, if you're going to take money out of your house, put it into another house. Take it from one place and put it somewhere else where it's a real asset. Not to say that life insurance, especially with whole life, is guaranteed. Yes, you can do it, but there's those initial costs in the beginning. It's going to take a few years to be able to catch up to make your money back. And especially if you're chasing the interest rate on the mortgage, it might take you 10, 15, 20 years to catch up. That's the gamble he's doing, because if the stock market goes down or if it doesn't perform as well as he hopes, now you're pissed at him, right? You're mad because now you owe more in your mortgage than you would have if you just paid it like normal. So, and of course he already tells you to keep paying your mortgage payment anyways. But the problem is that when people say, hey, take this money and just go and throw it in this, you better make sure it's something that's worthwhile. You better make sure it's actually something that's going to make you money, which is why, again, I would say put it into real estate where at least it's coming from a property, going into another property, and you're able to hold and conserve that value. Now, I thought it'd be fun. The second one is talking about like actually paying more to your mortgage. So there's this woman that did a video on this. I'll show it right here.
This is a great question. Every 2 weeks, we paid half of our mortgage, which is $1,000. Pay $500 on the 15th, $500 on the 30th, and you're done by the 1st. There are two main reasons that this helps so much. One of them being because it actually creates an extra payment every year, and is because it saves you on interest. It's your principal balance before it calculates interest for the month. This will save you on interest monthly and also pay your principal faster.
Okay, here's the thing that's a little bit of a truth. She's absolutely right. It does pay down faster because when you pay every 2 weeks, take 2 divided into your 52 weeks of the year, that's 26 half payments or 13 full payments you paid on your mortgage. So what she's just saying is pay an extra payment every year. I've run the numbers. If you actually just at the beginning of the year pay 1 extra payment on top of your payments, so say in January you pay 2 mortgage payments, you'll actually pay it down faster than her strategy. Granted, you have to have the money to do that, but you actually don't have to pay it every 2 weeks. So when you have these banks saying, hey, let's do these bi-weekly payments, which kind of, every time we've had clients with it, they really haven't enjoyed it much. They've actually realized that they're probably paying more than they should be. Don't do it. That's just my recommendation, is just don't do that. All right, last one. This one I thought was fun. This one talks about investing for compound interest. So there's this former pro skater that says, his name is Mikey Taylor, says that 18-year-olds should invest $300 a month for the next 8 years. And then by the time they retire, it'll be worth $1.8 million. Let's see if that's really true. All right, so I went ahead and put that in. If you put in 8 years, and I put at 8% interest for the stock market, that's way big of a number. The average of the market in the last 30 years has really been about 7.6, 7.7%. But I'm putting in 8. After 8 years, you have $39,931. All right. Now, you're going to be, at this point, 26 years old. So what would happen if we just said, all right, that's another, say, 39 years at 8% interest? Okay, I did not come up with 1.8 million. Not even close. I came up with 803,000. I'm $1 million off. I'm guessing that he's probably putting in like a 12% return. And remember, I put in 8%. I was being generous on this return. And he's come up with 1.8 million. First off, I'm getting 800,000 by doing that. I did not have anything taken out for taxes. Oh, but I did have taken out for inflation. Because even if it was true, let's say it was 1.8 million, what's 1.8 million going to be worth in, like I was running this number here, 47 years. 47 years. What do you think it's worth? Well, I did a 5% inflation rate. I know it's not 2% like the Fed say, but let's be honest. We know it's not 2%. It's not even 3%. It's much higher. 5%, your after inflation adjustment after those 39 years, not including the previous 8, is $119,800. What does that mean? That means you paid $300 a month of $3,600 for 8 years. You've paid over $30,000 to now finally, after almost half of a century, you now finally have about 120 grand. Yay! You quadrupled your money, your buying power after a half of a century. Lame, okay? So yeah, it sounds amazing. And those numbers sound amazing when I was a financial advisor saying that stuff to people too, especially young couples that were in their early to mid 20s. The truth is, it really isn't that big of a deal. So anyways, as you should know, TikTok, Instagram, this stuff, even my videos, you should look at it with a grain of salt, right? You really should see if it's really true or not. If it sounds too good to be true, dig deeper and find the truth for yourself. But I'll tell you, a lot of this stuff can scare you. It scares me at least. If you like this video, you should check out what Dave Ramsey says when he actually looks at Graham Stephan's portfolio. Check that out right now.